Hi everybody, it's me, Fedyoda, and welcome back to the kitchen. Okay, sorry, I've been watching a lot of Drag Race lately, so hopefully RuPaul doesn't see that and sue me. But if they do, I'd be honored. Anyway, welcome back to our continuation of our vegan treat food journey. Today we are going to be making a vegan Swiss meringue buttercream. We're going to make a chocolate variation. And basically traditional Swiss meringue buttercream is made with fluffy egg whites. You create a meringue, Swiss meringue, and you add like sugar and salt and then your flavors and your colors and all of that, and then you produce it with butter and egg whites. In this case, we're going to actually be using the bean water called aquafaba, which is essentially a liquid protein, and it functions very similarly to egg whites, okay? We're going to use garbanzo beans specifically because they don't impart flavor, and on top of that they produce a very clear liquid, and so it adds like it creates a very white base for us to utilize with our cake, which we can color whatever color we like. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and jump right in. So in my pot here, and I am using a very large pot, use a pot that is much bigger than you expect that you'll be needing, because this will, and you'll see, it will bubble up and fill the whole thing. And once we start boiling, we really don't want to mess with like the temperature or like changing vessels or anything like that. We just want to let it go and cook for 5 minutes. Okay, I have a cup of sugar already in the bottom of my pot. I'm going to put a strainer on top of it. Shake your bean cans really well because we want to get all that protein. And I'm going to just go ahead and open my 2 cans, and we are going to just go ahead and pour that directly in there. There's can number 2. And as far as the beans are concerned, put these in a Ziploc bag, put them in your freezer. I'm going to be teaching you a savory dish to utilize these, and that way we create like almost a zero waste meal. We're going to turn on our heat. You want it to be a medium high, and grab a whisk, and you're just going to start whisking away. And you'll see it's immediately starting to create foamy bubbles. That's amazing. We want that. We want it to get really fluffy and big and fill up this pot, because the more bubbles we have, the fluffier of a meringue we're going to get. We're going to want to get this to a boil, and we're going to let it go for a full 5 minutes, okay? You don't have to whisk it super vigorously. I like to do it because it creates all these bubbles, and that's what we're objectively trying to get. And also I want to avoid scorching the bottom, because unfortunately if you scorch the bottom or even like slightly burn it, it ends up flavoring all of the liquid. So as long as we keep it moving, that'll be fine. At this stage now, we're going to put a timer for 5 minutes, and we're just going to let it boil for 5 minutes. I'm going to leave this handy. Just every now and then I'm going to stir it around, and just to make sure that it doesn't burn. Okay? In here, I have my 1 cup of powdered sugar in a strainer, and I'm just going to go ahead and sift it directly into this small bowl. Alright, in this bowl I have my ½ teaspoon of cream of tartar, and I'm going to take 2 tablespoons from this powdered sugar I just sifted and add it to the cream of tartar, and keep this separate. We'll come back to this. This will all get added into our Swiss meringue buttercream. This gets added first, and then the rest of the sugar. So we're just going to whisk that together, and now that's prepared. So once this is done, it's going to go directly into my stand mixer. That's why my stand mixer is here. If you're using a hand mixer, you don't actually need to transfer this into another bowl. You can mix directly into your pot, assuming it's stainless steel like mine is. I still recommend that you transfer it to a mixing bowl, because the whole point is we want to not only produce a meringue, but we also want to cool it at the same time. So if you leave it in a hot vessel, it's just going to be hot longer, and we need it to get to room temp while it's whipping, so that we can add the shortening, the vegan shortening, without it melting and creating like a soupy mess. We want it to kind of be light and fluffy and constitute this really beautiful thing. I'm going to turn it off. Open that up. I'm just going to pour it directly into my stand mixer. All right. Now, put your stand mixer on, I would say, medium speed. Immediately it's already starting to bubble, and it's starting to create the body that we're looking for, okay? This will take a while. It could take 20 to 25 minutes, and what we're going for is stiff, glossy peaks. It'll be very white. It'll look almost like marshmallow fluff, but even glossy, okay? That's the goal. Okay. So it went from like a yellowish syrup to now it's turning white, which is attributed to the sugar that we added, and it's starting to create more of almost like an egg white texture. You can already tell. You can already see that it's working. Okay. So again, be patient. Alright. This is looking really great. I'm really pleased with this. Hopefully you are having similar results. So we're getting to we're not at stiff peaks yet, but we're getting to this really beautiful, glossy white. So we're not quite at stiff peaks yet, but we're getting this really beautiful, glossy white, thick texture, which is exactly what we're looking for. So we're very close to getting stiff peaks, and then once we do that, we can move on to incorporating our cream of tartar, which will help stabilize, and the rest of our sugar, and then our cocoa powder, and then we can talk about all that stuff. Very important when you're doing anything with a stand mixer, or any mixer for that matter. Make sure that you are scraping down the sides and the bottom. And this is what I mean by it's gonna look like marshmallow fluff. Go a little longer. Alright, so this is exactly what we're looking for. See that? They're a little soft, but with the cream of tartar, it'll stabilize. So I'm gonna let it go a little bit longer. I got my cream of tartar ready. Alright, very important. We only have half a teaspoon of cream of tartar in this bowl. We want to make sure that all of it gets incorporated into our buttercream. So I'm going to actually just, for a second, set it to the side, set my whisk to the side. I'm going to put in all of my sugar and cream of tartar. And before I turn it back on, I'm going to actually just whisk it in by hand. And now I'll turn the mixer on. Because if I just turn the mixer on, there's a really good chance that the dry ingredient with the heavy meringue, it'll just kind of go, and a lot of it will go out and not in. And I want to stay in the bowl. Okay, that looks great to me. Perfect. See, and now we have pretty stiff peaks. Okay, this is our sifted powdered sugar. So go ahead and put that in there. Mix it again. I'm gonna leave my mixer off for a second to move it aside so that I can show you what we're going to be adding to it. So in here I have 2.5 cups of vegan shortening. I have my kosher salt. I'm gonna use some vanilla and some cocoa powder. The cocoa powder won't be going in until the very end, but we want to sift it. I have 1/4 cup, and 1/4 cup is just kind of like our baseline. You can definitely and will probably add more, but it entirely depends on the type of cocoa that you're utilizing. If you're using a really rich cocoa like I do, then 1/4 cup should do it. But I've definitely used up to 1 cup. So it really depends on how chocolatey you want it. So definitely this is a purely taste decision, okay? So once it's sifted, set it aside. We're not going to be using it until later. Same thing with the vanilla, 1 teaspoon of vanilla. You can add it now if you'd like to. I'm going to go ahead and actually do that. I'm going to put it directly into the bowl so that I know it's done. I'm going to do a pinch of kosher salt. That's going to go in there too. I'm going to turn this on just for a second, just to get it to mix. neck off. And then when we're adding our shortening, we're gonna add it in like large clumps, okay? Like probably the spatula full, so something like this. And you just scrape it on the side of the bowl and kind of push it in. And you want it to be on the whole time that you're doing it. I'm just turning it on and off in between so that you can actually hear me. So, and then you're just gonna turn it on and turn it on high and let it mix and whip right in. If you notice that your buttercream is really soupy after you add everything, before you even start adding your shortening, you wanna feel the sides of your bowl. Just like grab the bowl, you're gonna grab the bowl and feel the sides. If it feels any hotter than your actual body temperature, then it's still too warm. You just turn it back on high, let it keep whipping, the air will cool it down, then it'll be usable. What'll happen is if you put in shortening while it's still too warm, it'll end up being really soupy, and then you have to put it into the fridge just to like cool it back down. Or you can add cold shortening directly into it and that'll help cool it down. If you add shortening that is too cold and it's not room temp, then it'll actually seize the meringue and it'll make almost like a cheese-like texture. And you can warm it up with a hair dryer. Just blow on low on the sides of your bowl, or if you have a torch, you could do that. But I'd be very careful when doing that because a little bit of extra heat and then you have a soupy situation and then you have to put it back in the fridge, and then it's just like this whole process of never ending. Too cold, too hot, etc. Okay? And then just make sure you use all your shortening and keep it whipping and see what happens. So I've added about a quarter of the amount, and I'm just gonna keep adding more and more right now because the consistency looks really good. And we'll just keep going from there, and we'll check in on it every few seconds or every few like additions, like big chunk additions. Okay, so you can turn it on and just start lobbing it in. Don't turn it on super high when you're adding, but increase the speed, especially once it's all added, okay? Go ahead and just scrape my bowl. This looks really great. It's a little bit on the soft side, so I'll probably like put it in the fridge before I use it, just for a little bit, but it looks really great. So at this stage, you have to decide if you want to use colors. This would be the point at which you take out some like of this cream white color and you add it to different bowls, and then you add your different colors, and then you have different colors, especially if you're going to add chocolate, because obviously it's going to make it grayish brownish. So I'm probably going to take a little bowl amount of this out, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to utilize the bowl that actually had my shortening in it. First thing I want to do before I even do that is I'm just going to go all the way down and make sure that everything got mixed really well. And this looks wonderful. So now I'm going to go ahead and take out like a good portion, just maybe 1 or 2 spatulas. And then set this aside. And at this stage, you can add your cocoa. So I'm going to add my 1/4 cup of sifted cocoa right here. If you also want, you can add espresso to make like a mocha variation. By the way, a 1/4 cup is just starting. Like if you decide you want it more chocolatey, that's fine by me. Add more chocolate. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to mix that up. Going to get our spatula. Now the most important thing is taste. Grab a spoon. I love it. I think it tastes delicious. I did not double dip. I use the back of the spoon as well as the front of the spoon. That's perfect. And there you have it. You have your vegan Swiss meringue buttercream. The next thing we're going to do now is stack our vegan cake. So let's clean down and get set up and start working on that.